Good evening, and so glad that all of you are here at Redeeming Life Ministries in Stanton, Virginia. And we're just going to talk for a while about a topic in the Bible that we're going to not finish tonight. It's the little book of Ruth. You can read Ruth in 15 to 20 minutes on your own at home, short 4 chapters. And it's a little story, but pondering Ruth is taking me a lifetime. Can't do it in 15 minutes. There's so much in it. And so let's look at verse 1 of Ruth. Now, it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land. Let's stop right there. If we go to the Bible's previous verse, which is the last verse of the book of Judges, it's just the very previous verse, that's Judges 21:25. This is what leads into Ruth. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Now that's repeated throughout the last half of the book of Judges about 4 times in one way or another. Judges has just ended. If you go back and read the book of Judges, it begins with basically Moses has died, and as Moses was about to die at the end of Deuteronomy, he told the people, God says this, and I know it's true, that after I am gone, very soon all of you will depart from the Lord. You will forsake his laws and break his covenant, and you will be scattered by God himself to the 4 winds of the earth. Now we could read that, the Song of Moses, in Deuteronomy 32 and 34. And it's a dismal, dark song that predicts how things will all start going downhill, and he only gives them one hope, and that is it is possible if you will call on God as a people, then this prophecy will be canceled. Otherwise, you're going to be scattered everywhere, and God's going to see that you are. Well, Moses dies. We come through the book of Joshua. It seems like things are going pretty good. Joshua's 5 years of leading the people to conquer the land of Canaan. And then several more years, Joshua acts as the judge over them. After Joshua dies, there's, other great leaders, Caleb, Othniel, and Gideon. But we start seeing something, that a lot of the people of Israel are rebelling. What begins to happen over and over again in the book of Judges, we've got a generation that is serving God and repenting, and that story finishes, and then we have, but there rose up another generation that forgot God. And this cycle keeps coming throughout the book of Judges. I pointed out as a rolling cycle. First, at the top of the clock face, they're serving God. Then they forget God. Then God sends in an enemy. Sometimes it's the Philistines, the Canaanites, Egypt, or Moab, or the Midianites, or somebody comes in and conquers them. Well, now they're all conquered at the 6 o'clock level of the circle. Things are going bad. There are famines that set in. There are plagues. And there are civil wars happening in Israel, tribal wars. Israelites killing Israelites. They begin to cry out to God at this point, and God raises up a judge. The judge is usually a military leader who will lead them in victory over the enemies that have conquered them. But then if that's all the judge is, why don't we call him a general? He's called a judge. Now, what is the judge's job is to take these backslid people who are now in terrible trouble and begin to teach them the ways of God again. This could take decades. We have a judge named Deborah who sat under a tree for decades judging the people of Israel. That means they came to her with their questions, their pleas, and she would adjudicate in a case and then explain why and the ways of God and slowly pull these people back to God. And after years of getting these people, this generation that forgot God, getting them back to serving the God of Abraham, then the judge will lead them in a military victory against their enemies, and they'll rise up and be on top again, and they're serving God. That happened 7 times, because just about each time it says, but then the next generation went through it all again. They got right under Gideon or under Deborah or under Shamgar, or, one of the judges. But then there rose up another generation that forgot God, and things went bad again. And so that goes over and over again until we come to the last judge, whose story is told in the book of Judges. Does anyone know who the last judge was? Huh? No, well, Samuel was the last judge, but not in the book of Judges. Samson. Now, after Samson dies, his entire tribe, the tribe of Dan, wanders off to the north and disappears from history. Then we have a story of the Levites being corrupted. They'll come into your house for a fee and lead worship to any idol you want to set up and any demigod you want to serve. So we've got a story of that going on in the days of the judges. And then the third thing, this carries on the last few chapters of Judges, the Benjamite Civil War was brought on by something very horrible that these people did. And there is Israel's first big civil war. And the tribe of Benjamin is almost completely exterminated except for 600 men. And it goes on saying how these 600 men got wives, because everybody in the other tribes hated the Benjamites and didn't want their daughters marrying any of these guys. So there's an interesting story of how wives were found for them. And that ends the book of Judges with the statement we're looking at right now. All of this kind of, Judges has not gone from the death of Moses uphill, getting better and better, serving God. It has gone like this, and all the wheel of it is this downhill cycle over and over again. And Judges ends with this calamitous statement that's been repeated since Samson. Things weren't going right. It was anarchy, which means everybody does his own thing, and there's no rules and no governance. There's no unity. Doesn't say the people did what was right in their eyes, but every man did his own thing. And so there's rampant individualism. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. And maybe it's time to do what Moses said. Back in Deuteronomy, Moses had said, the day will come when you, Israelites, will say, we must set up a king. And Moses gave 5 rules for such a king when you finally do it. So now the writer of Judges is thinking about that. The judges' system is not making a great nation out of Israel. Moses died by saying what he had done was going to fail. There's got to be something to bring this nation into unity. The Levites aren't doing their job of teaching scriptures to the people. No synagogue systems have been set up anywhere. There's a tabernacle in Shiloh. Most people don't even bother to visit it, And so the writer of Judges is saying something's going to have to change. All of this is happening because there's no central power holding it all together. No king in Israel. But in the days of the judges, every man did that which was right in his own eyes. You turn the page, and there's the book of Ruth, verse 1. 1 of Ruth begins, now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled. Now, is this going to be another horror story? We've just read one horror story after another about what went on in the days when the judges ruled. The whole nation has gone to seed. Thuggery and anarchy are everywhere. What's going to be the answer? Well, here's God's answer. Somebody's crying out saying, oh God, send a national revival, do something, change our nation, move on our whole country. God says, I tell you what, I'm going to move on. One little guy named Boaz and one little woman named Ruth. And I'm going to move everything back to the family. This is going to be a wedding story, not a battle story, not a story of conquest or war. This little book of Ruth we've just turned to, have we never read it before? We wonder, why is there suddenly a book named after a woman? And what's this going to be all about? Oh, it's in what I just finished reading about, the days when the judges ruled. Oh, those rotten people in those days. What's happening to them? Oh, there's a famine in the land. Good for them. That's what they deserve. Those wicked people of Israel during those days. And now the camera zooms in on one figure. The camera of the book of Judges, if we were watching this as a film, will not back up to show huge groups of people, armies, or the entire nation again. The book of Ruth is actually the addendum to the book of Judges. And it says, now let's focus on a family. Now here's a family. He's a man of Bethlehem, Judah. Bethlehem, we haven't really met that town yet until now. It means house of bread. Bethlehem, house of bread. And it's in the holdings of the tribe of Judah, which means praise. So if you want to look in this, it's kind of poetic nomenclature. This guy leaves the house of bread and praise. Why? Because there ain't no bread in the house of bread. It's a famine. And there certainly isn't any praise going on. Nothing to be thanking God for. We've been in trouble for generations. We're in trouble now. Things have never been worse. Where are we going? Well, we're going to Moab. He and his wife and his 2 sons. Let's read verse 2. We get his name. His name is Elimelech, which means God is my king. Oh, well, in those days there was no king in Israel. Here's a fellow whose name means, yes, let's have God be king. And the name of his wife was Naomi, which means sweetness. She must have been a nice little woman. Growing up, they named her Naomi, sweetness, or honey bun, sugar pie. But she had 2 sons for her husband Elimelech, and they got bad names, Mahlon and Chilion. Now, Mahlon means whining, and Chilion means complaining or griping, whining and sighing. And why would you name your kids that? It's like what you gonna name this boy? Let's name him Grouch. What you gonna name this little girl? Let's call her Fussy. Well, I guess people do name their children sometimes in humorous ways, and nicknames stick as the child grows up. Bony, Fussy, Weepy, Sneezy, Dopey, Doc, the 7 dwarves. Where these names come from? Well, here's two men with difficult names, and they are Ephrathites of Bethlehem, Judah. Now that means they're of the original class that first settled Bethlehem. They called it Ephrathah at first, and so they come from the noble neighborhood, the better side of the tracks in Bethlehem, so to speak. But they leave there and they come to the country of Moab and continue there. Verse 3, and Elimelech, we don't know how long they're in Moab, but he dies. leaving Naomi, his widow, with 2 sons. Verse 4, then the 2 sons grow. So they're there for enough decades for these boys to grow into their 20s. So for the boys to grow there, they've been there a while. And they take wives of the women of Moab. And the name of the one was Orpah. Well, since the famous lady Oprah gained a lot of attention some years ago, I hear preacher after preacher and Sunday school teacher after Sunday school teacher referring to Ruth's daughter-in-law as Oprah, which is, it's Orpah, and the name of the other was Ruth. Now, the name of Ruth means friendship, simply friendship. So that's the name of this book, the book of Ruth. So in hard times, we need a book about simple human friendship. And it's going to be a story of love. And they dwelled there about 10 years with their husbands. Verse 5, but Mahlon and Chilion died also, both of them. Well, if you're going to go live in Moab, Naomi, looks like all you've gotten is death. And that's the way Naomi's going to put it. The Lord has taken everything from me. And she won't even acknowledge that what God has given her are 2 daughters-in-law. Maybe you lose something, but God gives you something. So she's left of her 2 sons and her husband. Verse 6, Naomi gets up one morning with her 2 daughters-in-law, and they walk with her out to the highway because she's telling them she's got her bag on her back, whatever she'd be carrying, and she tells them, I'm gonna leave this country and go back to the land of Judah. I've got to go across the Jordan to get there. Well, why are you going back there? She says, well, I have heard that here in the country of Moab, I've gotten some word that the Lord has visited his people, Israel, in giving them bread. They've gotten over the agricultural problems of the famine. They've built back up some prosperity. We're going to see that fields are now full. The rains are coming, the early rain and the latter rain, and the various harvests are coming in their seasons. She's just heard this from the grapevine, from somebody traveling through. And she looks at these 2 young women who have been faithful for 10 years as her daughters-in-law. And they've just had their own husbands' funerals, but they have stayed with this woman. And they're walking with her now, and she says, I'm going home. Verse 7. And she went forth out of the place where she was. The 2 daughters-in-law walk with her. They even get on the highway for a ways with her, probably to argue with her. Do you really want to do this, you know? And we'll give us time to go pack our bags and we'll go with you. They apparently love their mother-in-law, Naomi. Verse 8, but Naomi turns to both of them and says, very Elijah-like, I don't want you following me. You go back to each one to your own mother's house. Why are you? Your mothers are still living. Go back to them. I'm just your mother-in-law, and I can't even be that anymore. I don't have a husband or sons. The Lord deal kindly with you, with each of you, in the kind way that you have dealt with the dead, your 2 husbands, and the kind way you have dealt with me. Now there's appreciation here and friendliness. She's not just being bitter. It's a very human thing. But I'd rather you just went home. I don't know that I'll have anything to offer you in Bethlehem when we get there. Verse 9, and Orpah is going to cry. The Lord, Naomi goes on to say, may the Lord grant you that ye may each find rest, each in the house of your husband. You're still young women. Go get married again. Go find another husband and find joy in life. I don't have any husbands for you. And she kisses them. Now, this is getting more and more tender. And it's very touching. They began to weep out loud. This is a part of their lives that is now breaking up. It's hard to say goodbye. Verse 10. And they said to her, surely, ma-in-law, we're going to go with you. Don't tell us all this. We're going with you. Verse 11. And she said, I'm telling you what to do. Turn again, my daughters. Why would you go with me? What do you think I'm going to get? Look. If I were to marry a man today and miraculously expect a child by tonight, and miraculously the 9 months are fulfilled and I give birth tonight, are you going to wait for those babies to grow up so they could be your husbands? Here's the way it's put here. Why would you go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my womb that they may be your husbands? Verse 12. Turn again. Third time she's telling them. Turn again, my daughters. Go your way. I'm too old to have a husband. So you're not going to get any more husbands out of my sons. I ain't having any more. If I should say I have hope and should have a husband also tonight and should also bear sons, even tonight. Verse 14. Would you wait? Oh, I'm sorry. Verse 13, you were correct. Would you tarry for them until they were grown? Would you stay for them from having husbands? Would you wait for if I had 2 new baby boys, would you never marry until my baby boys came? They must have made something like that. We will never marry anybody else, Naomi. We love you, and we loved your husband, and we loved your sons. And we don't want to be around anybody else. We'll never marry again. She's convincing them that they are wrong. You ought to go marry again. Nay, my daughters, for it grieves me much for your sake. And here she's blaming God, that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. Now, Naomi is tottering on her belief in God, and on one hand she prays, may the Lord deal kindly with you. On the other hand, she says, he hasn't been kind with me. And she's going to accuse God of this again in a little bit. Anybody interrupt me at any point. I'm just going through the story, adding narrative commentary. Now verse 14. And they lifted up their voice and wept the second time. And these next 2 clauses are interesting. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her. Now look at the difference. Orpah goes and kisses her on the cheek. Ruth just embraces her and won't let go. Come on, Ruthie. She doesn't want us. I'm not letting go. Orpah kissed her. Ruth embraces her. Verse 15. And Naomi says to Ruth, trying to take her grip off of her shoulders. She says, look, your sister-in-law, look, she's going down the road. Don't make her walk alone. She's going back to her people and unto her gods. Return you after your sister-in-law, Ruthie. Go, catch up with her. And Ruth says, this is the most famous statement. From this, we get the basis for Christian marriage vows. Some form of this. Ruth says these words. It'll be verses 16 and 17. I'll just read them one at a time. Mother-in-law, do not entreat me to leave you. You've repeated your request 3 times. That becomes entreating me. You're very pushy with it. Leave me, leave me, leave me. Don't say it again, mother-in-law. Don't tell me again to return from following after you, to turn around and go back. I've been walking with you. I'm going to keep walking with you. For here's what is in me. Naomi, wherever you go, that's where I'm going. Wherever you live, that's where I'm going to live. And whatever the people are that you're going back to, I'm going to make them my people. And your God is going to be my God. Continue a little bit more. And wherever you die, even after you die, Naomi, I'm not coming back here. I'm going to stay there until I die and be buried next to you. I love you, and life and death will not separate, or death will not separate us. May the Lord do so to me and more also. What does that mean? Well, Naomi, you've said the Lord has dealt very harshly with you. Well, may he do so to me also. And more, worse, if anything but death could part you from me. Now that's where we get another phrase in our marriage vows, until death do us part. All right, verse 18. By the way, that's an interesting suggestion about the afterlife. Will we be married in the afterlife to the person we're married to now? I told Shell, I said, I hope so. She said, I hope not. Naomi doesn't seem to think so, that death will part us. And Ruth doesn't seem to think so. Death will part us. But maybe not. We'll see. Will we continue our friendships in heaven? Maybe not marriage. The Sadducees come and ask Jesus a marriage question about the afterlife. I've just untied my own shoe. Pardon me. Hope I don't trip over it. The Sadducees want to know if a man dies, will he wait for his wife to die and she'll be married to him in the afterlife? Because that could be a problem. What if she doesn't want to wait and she marries his brother, and then he dies, and then she marries another brother? Well, it's time for those brothers to quit marrying with this woman. They all die. She's putting something bad in their coffee, I believe. But which one? Whose wife will she be in heaven? You know. And Jesus said, you guys ask the stupidest questions. Heaven's not going to be about that kind of relationship. Anyway, when Naomi saw that Ruth was steadfast in her decision to go with her, then she stopped speaking to her. Well, you do what you want to. Come on, but I ain't talking. And there's these icy silences that happen. They walk along, and Naomi's mind is pondering, well, wait till she sees how tough this journey is going to be. Wait till she sees how difficult it's going to be. Wait till she sees when we get back to Bethlehem, nobody's going to remember me. People are all going to blame me for taking good Elimelech off to Moab and letting him die there. And it's going to be bad, and nobody's going to really welcome me back, and I don't even know what we're going to do. Naomi's not thinking about the sweet possibilities that are ahead for her. She doesn't mention that she's got some wealthy kinfolk through her husband, Ephrathites. She doesn't mention that there's all sorts of opportunities for her. So she's just going along in cold silence. Ruth doesn't want to say any more because she's deferring to Naomi. So they walk along in silence. Now look at this next verse. So they two went until they came to Bethlehem. I'm going to stop right there. Do you know where you have to go? Excuse me, I'm going to tie my shoe. Do you know where you have to go to leave Moab and get over the Judean desert and then climb uphill to the Moriah Range, this is up in the mountains where Bethlehem is and where Jerusalem will be 4 miles higher up. You know what you got to go through to get there from Moab? Well, you have to, let's see, you leave Moab and you come down into the Jordan River Valley just north of the Dead Sea. Now it's not a easy little trip downhill. It is Switchback City, and it goes and descends to the very deepest gash of a canyon on the face of the entire planet, on all of earth. There is no surface point lower than the Jordan River Valley there. You get across the water, and then it's Switchback City climbing back up again. The Dead Sea is to your left, the high waters of the Jordan coming down into this low place. It is also one of the hottest places on earth, right down there. And these two women seem like they're traveling alone. We don't have another person mentioned. Symbolically, this means they've gone down, both of them, to their lowest place, the valley of the shadow of death. One of these days I'll do a teaching on the 14 mentions in the Bible of the shadow of death and what it means. But they descended down into that, and now they're coming back up. Just the geography of their travel shows that this is very much metaphorically a death and resurrection story. It is also, since she depicts her nation, Israel, she and her husband departed it all because it was so bad. And now, like her, Israel went down into its deepest valley at the close of the book of Judges. But there's a promise that it can come back up again. There was no king in Israel. That's why it went bad. It's a strong hint that there's going to be a kingdom come. So they come climbing back up again. Is this interesting to anybody here? By the way, the little book of Ruth, if Judges is written like a tragic history, Ruth is written like a song. It's written like a love poem. It is written with almost fairy tale beauty. And so they too make it to Bethlehem. Now, see them coming over that last rise, and there's the town of Bethlehem. And Ruth says, "Oh, this is your city, Bethlehem, down there, nestled at the foot of those higher mountains. What a lovely place." And Naomi says, "Don't get your hopes up too high. These people aren't even going to remember me. We'll probably do well to get a job scrubbing floors somewhere. Don't expect too much." So they come on down, and some watchman at the gates says, "Two ladies coming from the southeast road, two ladies coming." And people gather, and they come out of the gate. By the way, the gate of Bethlehem will figure later in the book of Ruth. And they stand there at the gate and watch them come. And here comes Naomi and Ruth, and people are talking to one another. Who is that coming here? I think that's, you remember, the wife of Elimelech, Naomi? It looks like her. Boy, she's aged, hadn't she? Are you sure that's her? Who's that with her? Well, I don't know. We don't know. But as they get closer, they look at her and they look at one another and say, "It is. That's Naomi, the wife of Elimelech." And they move out of the gate and come and meet them. The whole city is moved around Naomi and her daughter-in-law. This shows that Naomi and her husband, they weren't nobodies in their growth in that city. They were Ephrathites. They were important people. And the whole city moves out around them. And they say, I love the way it has it, that they said, is this Naomi? It's kind of like, that's a southern thing we have. When we hadn't seen somebody in a long time, we might say, Charlie, is that you? Is that you? What's that, Sheila? Yeah, they'll rub you on the head. That's right. Is that you? Statue? Verse 20, she says, not the Naomi you used to know. Things have changed and I've changed. Don't call me Naomi anymore. Call me Mara. Now that's interesting. Mara, it means bitterness. The name Mary means bitterness. Maria, Miriam, any form of it. That was my mother's name. But it comes from this. The word mar, M-A-R. Well, in Spanish, that's the word for salt water, the sea. In French, the ocean is mer, M-E-R. Comes from the same Hebrew root. It's where we get the word marine. Soldiers who are in ships, marina, marine things. And it means undrinkable water. You can't drink seawater. And she has just come up the mountain. She just a couple of days before had passed by the Dead Sea, where all the waters of Jordan flow down and stop there, and there's nowhere for them to flow out of the Dead Sea because it's the lowest place on earth. There is no downhill from the Dead Sea for water to flow to. The only way the Jordan River water escapes the Dead Sea is the heat of the sun evaporating it up. And that's it. And she compares herself to that place, the Dead Sea, Mar Muerte, the sea of death. Call me that. And why? That's my new name. I'm no longer sweetness. I am bitter salt water. You won't get any good taste out of me. For the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. And that word for bitter, go to the Hebrew, it's the same root as the name, Mara. Very bitter. Verse 21. And I'll tell you my testimony, she says. When I left here, I was full. I went out full. And now look, I once had everything. Look what the Lord has done to me. He brought me home again empty. I was full, but now I'm empty, and I trusted in Him. And what did I get for it? So why then do you call me Naomi, seeing that the Lord Himself has testified against me, and the Almighty has afflicted me? Now, this probably suggests that Naomi wasn't always a perfect saint of a woman. She's riddled with some kind of guilt over something. Maybe she didn't nurse her husband well enough. Maybe she now feels guilty that she had allowed her sons to marry the wrong women, and things had just gone wrong, and she should have persuaded Elimelech to get out of Moab a long time earlier. She's full of guilt of some kind. And she says, the Lord has judged me. He's testified against me. He's got an accusation against me. And He's blaming me for something, and now He's punished me for something. He's afflicted me. Verse 22. So the people didn't know how to respond to that. I'm sure some were hugging her, some were patting her on the shoulder, saying, oh, it's just good to have you back. And we all heard about the boys and your husband. We're so sad. Things have gone wrong for you, but we're glad you're back. And she returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which came out of the country of Moab, and it doesn't look like she's even turned to them and said, oh, and let me introduce my lovely little daughter-in-law to some. Ruth's just standing there. Nobody presents her. Nobody notices her. Naomi is getting all the conversation. Not one of them turn and say, And who is this person with you? And Naomi doesn't present her. So where do they go? We find there's a house later in the story. And somebody said, your old house is still here. Well, one of your husband's family's buildings is here. And when we saw it was you coming, somebody already ran and asked, and we'll find that there are other family members, and they're preparing it. It hadn't been lived in a long time. It'll take some sweeping out. Maybe if this is your maid servant, she can clean it up for you, but you can go and stay there tonight, and we'll see how things go. So they get back, and they get settled. And it's interesting what time of year it is. It's the beginning of the barley harvest. That means that their trip across Jordan was after the early rains and just before the latter rains. Otherwise, they couldn't have gotten across Jordan down there. So it hasn't been raining for about 6 weeks, and the big rains are about to come, so she gets back just in time to get across Jordan. Otherwise, you have to wait until all the rains have drained it down so you can make it across. And it's the beginning of the barley harvest. This puts this in middle June, just the beginning of the barley harvest. And we're going to see that there's also a wheat harvest. So there's 2 harvests in the book of Ruth. All right, that finishes chapter 1 of Ruth. Let's see how they often do it. Chapter 1 could be titled Ruth Decides. And chapter 2 is should be titled Ruth Serves. And then chapter 3 is, well, I know I can quote all of chapter 3 for you, but I forget the pretty little title they often put on it. And chapter 4 is Ruth Rewarded. So we'll come up with our own title for chapter 3 as we get there. But there's a custom. Now let's go on to chapter 2, verse 1, since we've got a few minutes. There's a custom called gleaning at harvest time. And I've just got to give you Moses' law about this. If you have the underprivileged, the misfortunate among you, the poor, when you come into the land of Canaan and lands are separated out and you farm, when harvest time comes, the Levites will assign certain families of the poor to be at your field. All the poor people come and appeal to the local Levites, and since the Levites were the ones that did all the real estate planning, they will assign to different landowners. Okay, you 3 families, you go down the road there, it'll be Mr. Jones's farm, he'll be expecting you, and you can glean his field. Now, gleaning doesn't mean you're going to work for him for wages. It means something else. And then you 2 families, you go over that road, you know Mr. Smith will be over there, and you can glean in his field. Now, Mr. Jones, the landowner, and Mr. Smith, and everyone else in Israel that owns land has been taught, you've got a square piece of land. Your reapers are to harvest it starting at the center. And they reap going around in a spiral until they come out to the 4 sides of your property. And they cannot reap anything growing in those 4 corners. So it's a round hole, or a round peg in a square hole. And those corners are for the poor people. But not just anybody can show up and say, well, I'm poor. They have to be registered with the Levites who know their genealogies and their families and who their relatives are, and they have to be mentioned as being truly impoverished. And then it is the duty of every one of you landowners to allow them to come. Ruth is from Moab. She knows nothing of these laws. She doesn't come the morning we're about to read about. She doesn't come with a big gunny sack like some of the women are carried folded up under their arms to go reaping. These are widows and orphans, and very few men among gleaners. Their husbands went off and died in a war somewhere. So these people know what to bring. Ruth doesn't know anything about that. Naomi, when Ruth goes out this morning, Naomi doesn't even know that Ruth's going to go and glean in a field. Ruth is from Moab. I can't bring her to the Levites. She's a foreigner. And they're not going to give her a place. Why go through all that? Ruth just gets out in the street that morning, and one of the ladies says, "Are you coming to glean?" What is that? Well, that's a system we have here in Israel. You know, your husband was an important Israelite. You have a right to glean. Tell me what that is. And they walk along until they arrive at Mr. Jones's field and find that she's been listed as the wife of Chilion, the son of Naomi, the daughter-in-law of Elimelech, and the relative of Lord Boaz. Here's how the chapter begins. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth. So he's a big landowner. And he's of the family of Elimelech, and his name is Boaz. Now we're going to find there's other kinsfolk, at least one other important kinsman that could lay claim on Ruth and Naomi if he wanted to. But now we find the story is going to be largely about Boaz as well as about these two women, Naomi and Ruth. All right, verse 2. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, "Look, I hear what, I've been talking with the women. I hear what they're able to do. I need your permission. Let me now go to the field, and I will glean ears of corn after him in whose sight I shall find grace." Now what she's saying is, Naomi, you have to tell people who I am so that I can go and get these rights to do it. And I can't do it without your signing the papers or swearing before the Levites. So this has to be established. And then I will go and glean ears of corn. And she says to her, okay, let's set that up. Naomi, it's strange that Naomi doesn't go to glean. That gives us a hint that Naomi is older. She feels too old to go do that. She's just come from a hard trip. But Ruth is young and hale and hearty and pretty, we think, but she might be a muscular girl, well-fed. We don't know. We don't have a picture of her. But since the story itself is lovely, we think of her as lovely also. But she's ready to do this hard, sweaty work. Verse 3, and she went, and she came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And it so happened, her hap, or the part that she was allowed, she was given one of the corners. Her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging to this Boaz that was just mentioned in the previous verse, who was of the kindred of Elimelech, this mighty man of wealth. She ends up not in Mr. Jones's field, but in a bigger field with bigger corners. Who owns that one? Oh, that's Mr. Boaz. Well, who's Mr. Boaz? We're going to find that he is an interesting bachelor. He's old enough to have developed a lot of property. He's devoted his life. He's never married, has no children. He's devoted his life to his work and made it prosper. So everybody knows him. Why has Boaz never married? Because of who his mother was. And who had she been? We don't find this out until the New Testament. Boaz's mother was Rahab the harlot, the whore of Jericho, who after she had been redeemed, none of the other tribes wanted her living among them, but Joshua accepted her covenant offer with God. And some of the people of the tribe of Judah said, we'll take her in. And there was a fellow in the tribe of Judah. I could just see women in Judah saying, well, they let her move in right down our street. There goes the neighborhood. We're glad she's saved and everything, but we don't really want our kids playing with her. And we certainly don't want our sons messing around with her. But there's this one big old fella named Salmon who gets to talking with the new Rahab. She's changed. She's taken our God as her God. She's gone through the conversion. Rahab has said what Ruth said tonight in our story. Your God will be my God, and your people will be my people. And Rahab has been sworn in, and Salmon says, I don't care what anybody says. I like her, and I'm going to marry her, and he did. And they had this little boy named Boaz. Poor Boaz growing up in school. None of the girls would dance with him at the school proms because their mama said, don't you dance with that nasty woman, son. Don't you be friends with him. So Boaz, and of course this is from my imagination, but he grew up a lonely fella and has become a lonely man. And or has become a lonely man. But he will meet Ruth, who is there only because she made the same covenant promise that his mother Rahab had made. Your people will be my people and your God will be my God. When Boaz learns more about her, he begins to feel certain. Maybe I can marry like Daddy did. If none of these pious, snippy girls around here wanted anything to do with Daddy and they don't want to have anything to do with me, then I'll get a girl just like the girl who married dear old Dad, a foreign girl. And one more verse, I think. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem. I imagine him riding a white horse. This is pure. He's the Lord of the harvest. And he comes riding down the road and into the field among all of his hired workers. And the hired workers, they stand up. This is the boss man, and they make sure that they stand up their toe sacks, showing how much they've been doing. Here's how full mine is. They're all going to get paid by weighing their bags, you know. And they want him to know that they're out there on the job doing what they're supposed to do. And they all salute him. You know, they say, the Lord bless you, boss man. And he waves his hat or his hand to all of them and says, the Lord be with you. And this is good. It's what you do on the first day of harvest. You go bless your workers, and there'll be a harvest feast later. And all of this, well, one more verse. I keep thinking it's coming up. But Boaz turns to his number one worker, his foreman, and says, who is that girl? I've never seen her. She doesn't look like one of our people. Whose damsel is this? We're going to stop right there. Whose damsel is this? In other words, who's her daddy? Whose daughter is she? He wants to know who her people are. And something that's caught his eye, because she hasn't stood up with all those professional farm men. She's over there picking up barley cobs. Now, when it says ears of corn, it's not like what we have in America. These are slender barley spikes, and you rake the kernels off of them. And some of them are just putting whole ears of barley in their bags. They'll get weighed for it if they can get by with it. But she's just got an apron she's filling up, and every grain is important. She's picking up and cleaning it, and she doesn't know who that man is that's come riding up. And she doesn't look up from her work. She wants to feed her starving mother-in-law when she gets home tonight. She doesn't know she'll be bringing home more than she can carry. before the day's over. But she doesn't even look up. And so here's this picture. What I think caught Boaz's attention, out of all the busy people around, what caught his attention, say, what about her? Who is that damsel? Whose family is she from? Shows that he hadn't maybe seen her face so well yet or know anything about her, except that he just sees that she's doing a labor of love for somebody. And that catches his attention. In the metaphors of Ruth, we find a Christ figure in Boaz. We certainly find a bride of Christ figure in Ruth. And we find a figure of Israel, the mother-in-law. Old Israel, who messed up, but she's got to wait also to be redeemed. But it will only happen when Boaz gets his Gentile bride as well. So we'll be looking at Ruth then, and maybe I can do it in one or two more Wednesday nights. Thank you for your attention tonight. Brother James, come get an applause while you make